Okay, so for 807, here are the goals of the chapter. And I'm going to issue a caution right now. I am recording this while Zoom is online for the last hour of my office hours. So if a weird thing happens and I have to pause and go away, that's why. No one ever comes into my office hours, so it's unlikely that we're going to get interrupted. But just in case, just so you know. Also, it may, if there's any camera irregularities, if it gets funky, it's probably because there's two video feeds going. So the goal of this is building on the stuff we did before, where someone was asking for someone to do something. Like, hey, we're supposed to go out to dinner, and my boss asked me if I could work overtime. So do you mind calling and blah, blah, blah. So building on that chapter. Wow, every chapter starts to build, right? It's almost like we're teaching a language here. Sorry, had a little bit more coffee than I probably should have this morning on an empty stomach. Okay, so we're going to focus on one type of conversation, and that will be a student or someone explaining a problem, asking for some advice. What should I do? And that will break down to that same sentence structure that we looked at before, where notice how they say tell when. Start with time. In a time, give a time frame so the other person knows what you're talking about. And then explain the situation. I'm doing this, or I was doing this. Included in that could be location, could be any of the other information from that sentence structure. And it ends with a verb. I was doing this, and then a thought occurred to me. And the conjunction we're using is like, oh my God, it hit me. Like, I had a thought. Okay. So we're using think as almost as if this is a dart that's been thrown at you and hits you in the forehead, and you have a realization that you're standing too close to the dartboard. Either that or your friends are psychopaths. So thought occurred to me. Then you ask for advice. What should I do? Okay. And then eventually we'll get to the point where we respond with some advice. And one of the ways that we can do it is when we get to the vocab section of this, we can be a little bit more specific. I don't like the way the book presents certain signs. Way back in ASL 1, it taught homework. It taught student homework. Different issue with that one. Student. And I feel like that's like learning how to pronounce something without understanding what you're actually saying. Because student is learn person. And once you learn this, then you understand, oh, this is just a contraction of that, right? So it's this is this, and then down is person. So I think it's better to learn that. Similar thing happens with numbers. 16 is the old school way of doing it. 10-6, 10-7, 10-8. The more contemporary is 16, 17, 18. And you can kind of see that it comes from 10-8, 8, that twist. It's the same movement, just we don't change hand shapes. Completely get it. And then there's the Ohio 18, 17, 16, which I just don't get. I think it's because of fear of frostbite, and people are so cold that they go, okay. So back to my point is they sign a contracted form of why not? And we'll look at it. It's like, why not? Why not? That is the sign equivalent of what's up. Where if you don't know what what's up means, then, or what the general question would be, someone learning English for the first time who sees an old Budweiser commercial and thinks everybody just says, what's up? But doesn't understand that it's actually what's up crammed together. We have that all the time in English. Goodbye comes from God be with you. And over time, it's gotten sort of crammed together. So we have lots of things like that, lots of contractions. So we'll look at why not, but I will recommend to you to learn why not. Bring Y down to the chin, and then turn it and bring out not. Why not? Why not? Why not? You do this. Okay. Only 22 vocab, not too much to memorize. And I will include a slideshow so you can look at them, what's wrong. We've seen error and mistake, right? So a similar thing, what's wrong? What's wrong? Prevented from or stuck. Stuck. As a kid running around the woods, if you take a forked stick, you can catch snakes and it doesn't hurt them. You basically just pin them down and you don't like put pressure on. Just enough so they can't move out. So that's why this is the sign for stuck. Paint. This would be if you're painting like a house or a room. This would be if you're painting like a portrait. And remember the sign for art was this, right? We knew thought occurred. What do I do? It's that do, different do, but it's do finger spelled do. So what do we do? What do we do? That's a pretty generic question. What are you doing? What do you want to do tonight? Tonight, what do we do? Right. It's a very useful question. Parents can walk in and be like, what are you doing? There's a shorter version. What? What? If you're pissed off, someone keeps bothering you, turn and go, what? And what it is it actually comes from W-H-A-T. It's finger spelled W-T. What? What? That's the real parents mad at you. What? Okay. Anyway, why not? Pants. Now the book does pants like this, and it looks kind of like poor unfortunate souls. Right? It kind of looks like Ursula. What it is pulling up your pants. Pulling up your pants. Pulling up your pants. How do we tend to sign pants? Although I've seen people now adopting the signing naturally sign. So pants. I sign pants. So do either one. Everybody will understand. Hemmed is kind of like you folded it right. Hemmed. Enter. These are all in the stories and all the examples. So I could go through them all right now, but it'll be the slideshow. It'll be so much easier. And it will make the lecture not quite as long if I don't have to go over all of them, because you can watch them on your own. So here's the situation. And the best way of looking at that is read the simple sentence that's up on top that summarizes what's going to happen. Then she's going to do a video explaining her situation. So she explains what happened, parked her car, locked it, on her way in, realizes she locked her keys in, then asks, what do I do? So again, it's following that same thing. I really wish that they had put the sentences in there. I just parked my car and on my way in, so that you can translate it one step as opposed to two steps. I know it's not that big of a deal, but it makes some of the verb questions and pronoun questions a little bit clearer. So explain the problem. Again, tell when. When did the problem occur, or when did you realize a problem had occurred? What is the situation? Explain locations, explain objects that are involved and all that. Then what did you forget to do, or what inadvertently happened? And then you end with, what do I do? All right. Now, I tried to label with blue. Sorry, my dog has realized the postman has come and is going to bark for a moment until he's sure that Justin, I'm Dr. Doolittle today, so I apologize. Come here. Great. Okay. So these are all things that next year I'm going to have to edit out, so they won't get to enjoy my pets interrupting. So I tried to, with these next few slides, just highlight the blue where things correspond. So notice how the first thing, tell when. You just parked your car. So it just happened. Remember the sign for recent? Augie, come here, bud. Come here, Aug. If I can distract him. Hey, Augie. Yeah, this all has to be edited up. Anyway, so when we were when we were talking about sentences and translating negatives, we talked about the importance of the time. If you knock over my electric ukulele, I am not going to be happy. All right, moving that over because. All right, sorry. Find my center. Find it. Hi, come on my lap. Okay. So, first thing you want to do is tell when. Establish a timeline so we know when this happened. Then the next is establish the situation, which is location, any other people or things involved, your car, the parking lot, whatnot. Then the realization, oh boy, I did this, or oh boy, I didn't do that. Okay. And then what do I do? Most examples they've got are something you forgot to do. You forgot to turn off a burner. You locked your keys in the car, stuff like that. So it's this. And what that is it's me, and then two-handed, finger spelled do, and repeated. That's the code that's in there. If you haven't read the introduction to your textbook, flip through it and look at all the codes they're using, because they're going to get more and more complex. That's the place to look if something is there and you go, I have no idea what that means. So here's the thing. You just parked your car, and on your way here, you realized you locked your keys in the car. Why did I repeat that? Because I've already got the situation. Okay, you know what? I can just delete this. Okay. So situation 2. He's going to tell a story about this morning putting a kettle of water on the stove for tea, forgetting about it after getting dressed and leaving for work. Now, here's what I want you to think about. Sign the sentence that's there. Sit down and figure out, how would I translate this into something I can sign? And one of the important things is, related to time, you have to tell things in order. In English, we can say, set this up, and then jump back in time and say, oh, and this happened before this. So I left for work, but while I was getting dressed, this happened. That's really confusing. In ASL, it's much more clear if you follow the timeline. If you start jumping around, your audience is going to be lost. So think about time. Every time time changes, you're going to change. It's a new utterance. It's a new chapter of the story. So this morning, got up for work, right? Got up for whatever, put a kettle of water on the stove for tea. So how would you show that you're doing that? And then notice what happened. You forgot about it. But what you really did was you got dressed, you left for work, and then remembered. Okay. So that's how much I want you to break down the process, the timeline. You're going to write a timeline of start to finish and what happened in what order. That will help you sign more clearly. If you jump around, I sign well, and I get lost when I watch someone jump around. I'm like, what are you even talking about? So it's not a failure on the part of the person receiving. It's always up to the signer to be clear. If the other person can't read your finger spelling, it's because you're not watching them to make sure they're keeping up with you. If you're signing with someone who's in ASL 1 or who learned how to finger spell in Girl Scouts when she was 8, it's up to you to match. So you start to finger spell your name, L-A, and if they're still in their mind going L, and you're like already on the R in Larry, and like, okay, hold on a second, and wait till they go L, A, okay, R, right? So it's my job as signer to make sure that they're with me. Okay, so accept those ground rules. So think about that. Translate the situation. Do the same thing with the parking one, which hopefully you've paused and leapt ahead. But if you're just watching this whole thing in one go, okay. So try to do it yourself first. See if you can figure it out. Then watch the video. Figure out the pieces first. And by the third one, you should be able to do that pretty easily. So the third one, Last night you went out to eat. I'm gonna change that just because I think the English is a little bit better. You went out to eat. You paid with a credit card. On the way home, you realized you'd forgotten your credit card. So there we go. It's already set up in the timeline. So most of the time, Signing Naturally will take care of it for you. Just look for the trick questions that they put in there. So last night, Hadi Sign went out to eat. The sign for credit cards in the vocab, and it comes from the very old little thing where you would put the card in, you would put the carbon copy over it, and do the roller over the top. So credit card is like this. It may eventually change to this swipe, and even then, we're starting to get away from swipe because you're putting it in and hitting the. I don't know how it's going to be, but right now it's still credit card. So you paid with credit card. Driving home, thought occurred to you. You realized, credit card I left at the restaurant. So restaurant. If you just say I left it there, we know because you've already set up. I went out to eat there, right? Finished, paid with paid credit card. Went home, realized poop. Okay. So now I have to change all these. Okay. So last night, and let me. Sorry, this is gonna be boring, but I want to make sure that it. Oh, okay. So here you go. There's the video for it. Lauren Terrell, she was former Miss Deaf America. So then the next step, once you've kind of mastered, oh, I got a problem, what do I do? Oh, I got a problem, what do I do? Oh, I got a problem, what do I do? Now, how do you respond to something like that? Give advice. So what we're going to use is we're going to use that why not. And one more sentence. I knew there was one more. Boosh. Okay. So what we're going to use is the why not. And it is down at the very end. I put all the vocab from here. I'm going to play this and see if it makes sense. So you notice she does why not? Why not? Why not? The first thing she did was why not? Why not? Which, if you look, it's just the why kind of turned and it goes right into not. Why not? I have never signed that. Why not? I've always done a 2-move. Why not? Why not? Why not? So it's totally up to you what you want to do. But I will recommend this is a much more generic and much more applicable choice. So that's the start of all of these suggestions. As we get into the mini dialogue. So conversation 3, Tonique is going to explain that there's a situation, she's got a problem, ask for advice, and Iva is going to offer her some advice. And you're going to see, why not? Here's a nice little thing where Tonique is using the conversation to think. So we'll see it in action a little bit more. I was going back and forth whether I should put this conversation way at the beginning, but I think I'm going to leave it here because normally we would get through the lecture and then you would start your homework with this. So, I don't know. Then there's the mini dialogues. There's 3 questions for each one. And these are right from your book. What's the situation? So what's the information that you need? What was forgotten? And then what was the advice given? So again, it's those same steps we did in the previous conversation, but now you're just doing it here. And I put the answers in with them, so we'll worry about that later. Again, second one, same 3 questions. And the third one, you guys have been watching so many videos now with all these chapters that hopefully you're starting to recognize signs and that are coming from these signers. Sometimes when you see a new person signing, it can be like trying to read a different font that may not be the clearest. But once you get used to a signer, it becomes really easy. One of the reasons why I recommend not using the same teacher for 1, 2, 3, and 4 for ASL, even though it feels like, well, I'm doing really well, you understand one person really well, but you encounter someone in the wild and you may be like, I have no idea what you're just signing. I know some deaf people where I have a real hard time understanding their sign language. For some reason, it's like they have an odd accent. I have one interpreter friend who is stiff-fingered. I don't know why she doesn't bend her fingers. Once in a while she does, but most of the time she's like, when her finger spelling, it's like this. I'm like, oh, I have a real hard time understanding her. Maybe just because I don't like her, but I don't know. Anyway, so I included at the end the vocab. And really there is, okay. This is all of the vocab. And I think it's 7. There's 7 vocab. So the first video is all 7 of them just together, and then I separated the 7 of them. And again, here's all the vocab that pop up for the chapter. And then the next slide, I will actually, the next slide, I will actually do all of the videos from the entire chapter. You don't have all of them. The situations I think are only in the teacher book or teacher DVD, so I will include those. I think a package got delivered, and that's why my dog is going crazy. But we've reached the end of this little chapter, so really just take the time and go through all the videos. And as with everything, 2 steps that I will recommend. 1, be able to sign with the video. So sign what they're signing. And the second thing is, try to voice what the English translation or the English concepts are and make it sound natural. You'll notice that things start to line up. And with a little bit of tweaking, you can line up similar concepts. That will help you understand the rhythm and the grammar of ASL and it becoming a little bit more natural. It seems like a weird thing, and you will have some teachers go, oh, don't do that. That's way ahead of where you should be. You're university students. You can handle a little bit of a challenge. Just my opinion. You could, your mileage may vary. All right. That is 8.7.